Recently, I've been reading a lot of Yuri works, and one thing I've learned is that a lot of them don't really appeal to you. A vast majority of Yuri works are inadequate, and frankly just lacking. Although I'm watching a series that should be consisting of meaningful progression and hopefully some sort of takeaway, that rarely is the case in reality. This wasn't something that I felt was the case when I was engaging in Citrus though. Citrus was a Yuri work that I genuinely enjoyed and maybe would recommend to other people. That's a hard maybe though, because recommending any Yuri works to people is kind of, anyways. Citrus was one of the first ever Yuri works I engaged in back in 2018, mainly the anime when it was still ongoing, and I've been consistently keeping up with the manga Citrus Plus since the middle of 2022. So I have quite a few things that I'd like to say about it. First, I want to give a brief overview of the series and a little bit of a refresher if you guys maybe forgot. Citrus is a Yuri romance between step-siblings. Oh god, when explained like that, it sounds so horrid, but bear with me guys. Our story is shown from the perspective of Yuzu Aihara, a girl who has transferred into a prestigious school and a prestigious family after her mother gets remarried. It's at the school that she meets her new half-sister, who is coincidentally the student council president, Mei Aihara. Throughout the series, we watch as these two characters grow more intimate with each other, overcome various obstacles that normal couples wouldn't face, and eventually become an irreplaceable piece of each other's lives. That is the general plot of Citrus in a nutshell. It's not the best explanation, but it'll suffice for now. If you're looking for a lengthy reminder, I'll probably link a video, or you're going to have to just go and reread/watch the series for yourself on your own time. Now let's talk about the plot. How does it compare to other Yuri works or works of romance in general, since the plots are all relatively cliche to some extent? Generally, I think that this is one of the better plots in the Yuri scene. When it comes to Yuri works, you're either going to get a plot that's incredibly cliche or a plot that's barely holding on for dear life. And I feel like this is a good mix of both. Yeah, the plot is pretty unrealistic, so that's going to be quite a turnoff for most, but watching the plot progress in real time and seeing our characters shift in maturity is where the plot really shines. There's times when this series takes a step back and shows us a different side of it, the side that's grounded in reality. The side that shows us that the story contains realistic elements that drive the plot as well. So with that said, I feel like these realistic elements that this story possesses as well kind of make up for the unrealistic elements that this story also possesses. In a way, they kind of weigh each other out, keeping the story grounded while dabbling in glimpses of cliche elements here and there. So someone like me who doesn't really like unoriginal plots, I feel like this was a good in-between and it kept the story feeling fresh. I never felt like I was watching a fantasy story or anything, but I also didn't feel like I was watching a story with the complete intention of being realistic. So the plot gets a general solid response from me. It's not the best, but it has elements that make up for it and make it tolerable, so it'll pass. Next, we're going to be talking about the characters, what I've personally been waiting for since I started this video. The characters are what drew me into this series. I don't mean to say anything subjective here, but these are some of the best characters I've seen in a long time from a Yuri series. Instead of talking about every single character, I want to focus my attention on only one of them. Probably my favorite character in this whole entire series, and the character who I just feel like stands out the most to me. That being Harumin or Harumi. Harumin is a character that appears as early on into the series as Chapter 1 and is a recurring character from then onwards. Harumin's goal and the entire purpose of her character is to support Yuzu, the protagonist, and with that said, you'd probably assume that she just takes on the role of a support character that we've seen countless times, but she doesn't. Harumin is a character that just kind of goes with the flow. She likes the same thing as Yuzu, so their interactions feel authentic, and they generally just feel like they actually belong. I always love seeing their interactions because it always feels like they're learning from each other and growing as people, while all at the same time realizing that they lead two entirely different lives. This is something that Saburouta captures perfectly. Although Harumin is nothing more than a supporting character, she still has a life to lead that she's anxious about. She's her own person and tries to support everyone around her while supporting herself as well. Having a lovable personality on top of a dynamic similar to this one creates an astounding character, and most of the characters in Citrus are like this. This feeling of self-identity as a character makes everyone in this series feel genuine. They're all friends and they love each other and they have absolutely outstanding dynamic going on. They've grown with each other, but they each have different goals that they prioritize to some extent. Where the plot fails to grasp the reader, the characters certainly exceed at in my eyes. And it's not much of an overstatement to say that the characters were definitely part of the reason that kept me returning to this series constantly. Since Citrus consists of 2 series, Citrus and Citrus Plus, there's lots of progression and developments that take place. And it's at this point in most series where the whole story is viewed in retrospect, and the question of how have these characters grown, or what have these characters learned, or how has the plot developed begins surfacing. And the sad reality is that this is where most shows will receive negative ratings. If there's nothing to show after the audience has dedicated tremendous amounts of time to watching, then what was the point? In Citrus, over time, the characters steadily grow more mature. Things they previously would get hung up on, they no longer even budge when approached by whatever that is now. Everyone starts realizing that they are no longer these naive children, and they have to either face what's ahead or get left behind. For example, Yuzu has to study to get into the same college as Mei, or risk their entire relationship crumbling after all this time, while characters like Haramin and Kana have to figure out what they're even doing to begin with. It's at this point where the plot completely shifts and we are now fully grounded in reality. There's no longer time to be naive high school students. The time to mature, the time to grow up, the time to face things they've been putting off is approaching, and they have no choice but to face what is inevitable. The plot develops while engulfing our characters in this process. Times have changed, and what they've learned through trial and error will gradually be shown while they work their way up through the world. For Yuzu, we're already kind of seeing this. For the last couple of chapters, she's been consistently studying, and that's been reflecting through her grades, because now Yuzu is a student who has great grades compared to the start where she was kind of iffy with everything. These characters learn what it truly means to love someone. These characters learn what it means to move on from someone. These characters learn what it means to be lost and anxious, and in a way, all of these characters comfort the reader, because these characters don't stop here. They triumph and keep going, just like they always have. And that is probably the greatest takeaway from this series. Now, as per usual, this part of the video is going to be unscripted, and it's just going to be my raw opinions and thoughts and things that I'd personally like to add. A lot of this video is just my experience when reading Citrus. I really did enjoy Citrus for what it was, and I really enjoyed seeing the characters mature, and how eventually it shifts from this plot that is so seemingly far-fetched to something that is almost a direct reflection of our real world, and our real world troubles that these characters have to engage with and somehow find a way to maneuver around. It's honestly really just comforting, and it kind of makes us view the characters in a different light once again. I personally think that if you haven't read Citrus, you should read it. For those of you that did watch the Citrus anime, I think that you guys should pick up the manga. The manga is just such a better adaptation, just by every single means. It's so much better. And the way that the manga has progressed from the original Citrus all the way up to Citrus Plus, it's just astounding. That's all I can say. It is just absolutely astounding, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Citrus. I'm going to be making more Citrus videos in the future. I do have some other topics that I'd like to expand on as well. I apologize that this video was kind of all over the place. There was a lot I wanted to talk about, and a lot that I just felt like had to be packed into this video. So yeah, I apologize for that. And with that said, that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, because I definitely had a lot of fun making it. I had a lot of fun talking about Citrus for the first ever time on here. And I hope to see you all soon.